What's up, YouTube? I'm Robert, and you're watching the B1KER Bar Podcast.
I've kind of always been like the guy who like tries to wear the appropriate gear for the job, and it's probably like super dorky, but like if I go for a road ride, I'll put on the spandex. I will, and I'll be like upset if my helmet has a visor and stuff because I'm like, I'm road riding. I'm supposed to be in road gear. But now my X factor is now I ride a gravel bike.
Yeah, so you can get away with it.
I justify that in my head because now I can wear baggy shorts because I'm on a gravel bike. But if I went on like a real road ride, I probably still would put on spandex.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
And then like if I'm at the mountain bike park, I put on the full face helmet and flat pedals because that's what you're supposed to do. If I go trail riding, I put on my SPDs and trail shorts and whatever.
So that's interesting. So you switch between like you're not strictly flat, strictly SPDs, huh?
You know, I was always like, I mean, I rode trials and dirt jumping and urban free ride and everything. So obviously you're going to do that in flat pedals. So I was always like really, really capable of riding in flat pedals. Like I can ride flat pedals in any circumstance. But then like wanting to be like wear the right equipment for the job guy, I would always like trail ride in SPDs because that's like what you're supposed to do. Yeah. And when I started trail riding, the thing that's made flat pedals such a big phenomenon nowadays is the dropper post. Yeah. If you were trail riding 10 years ago prior to dropper post, nobody was riding flat pedals because you can't ride flat pedals if your seat post is high. Like you
that
can't.
Makes sense. That totally makes sense.
The whole reason you ride flat pedals is because your seat's out of the way and you have all that leg moving to keep your feet on the pedals.
Yeah, and the shoes are better.
Right. But the biggest thing is like dropper posts like coming into
100% agree with you. I wouldn't have thought about that on my own until you just said that. But no, yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, so like I rode trials and my friends and I would always say like, man, wouldn't it be awesome to like ride trials in clips because you're like Superman. But the reason you wouldn't do it in trials is because trials is like golf. Like when you do a trials competition, everybody's so good that it's really just a matter of like putting your foot down one time could cost you the whole competition because everybody's super dialed and like the organizers would always be aware of what the people's riding ability was. So they just try to make things just out of reach because, you compete all the time. They know what everybody's capable of.
Right.
So if you're riding a course, say and you like lose your balance for a second and you just put your foot down, that's 1 point. If you were to fall over and like, even if you don't like wipe out, but you just like touch your hip to the ground or your knee or your elbow or whatever, that's 5 points. Oh, so man. It's not worth the risk of like clipping in because, if you put your foot down, it's 1 point. And if you get a 5, that literally like your competition's over. Like it's always that close. So
you'd rather put a foot down if anything.
Right. So we would always joke like, man, wouldn't it be awesome to do trials in clips? And there was a Canadian guy, I can't remember his name, that would do it. And it was like, it's awesome. Like the bike's totally connected to you. You can do like the craziest stuff, but just the risk is too high. So when I started trail riding, I would always ride clipped in just because, it's more efficient, whatever. And I had the fundamentals of riding flats. So I didn't have any bad habits. So I would always just ride it. And then as bikes, as I got more into it, my motivation for riding clips a lot of times are twofold. First thing is definitely makes technical climbing a little bit easier for sure. Like I'm not going to deny that. I could do like any of the videos I've ever posted of doing a technical climb, I 100% could do in flats, but it's easier in clips. Yeah, because I've ridden trials my whole life. Yeah, you get like the upstroke and and everything.
Yeah, that's the only thing I missed.
Yeah, and then the second thing is, for me, have you ever ridden a downhill that that you can do 100%, and just like the difference of keeping a finger on the brake lever and riding death grip mentally is like so much more challenging for you?
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
there's a few downhills around my house. Like I know I could ride it with my fingers on the brake levers and I don't need to use the brakes. But when you go death grip, it's just an extra commitment in your head, and it makes the same trail. It's not harder, but it just makes it seem more difficult. So it's kind of the same thing. Like for when I'm clipped in, if I'm going to ride like a log skinny or even like a technical roll down, for me, that's harder clipped in. So I feel like sometimes, like, I just like it because it makes the same trail more difficult, but not necessarily more dangerous, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I can see what you're saying.
Yeah, like if it's a suspended log, say over a ditch or something, and it's only like 4 feet, something where you're not going to like die, you know?
Right.
I do that clipped in mentally. It's way more difficult for me than if I'm on flats. Like if I'm on flats, I'll do anything because you
can just toss it.
I've ridden trials my whole life. I just know how to ditch the bike.
Totally.
Like, actually, you could see 2 videos ago on my YouTube channel, I had a nasty spill, and it was because I was clipped in. Like I went to get up on a rock, and then
I watched that. Your buddy like grabbed your head right before you.
Yeah, I went to get up a rock, and then when I went to take the second hop, which should have propelled me onto it, I was a little sideways, and like all this technical riding is like a game of millimeters. I was just a side slope just enough that I lost my traction, and then when I tipped over, it pinched my foot against a rock, and I couldn't unclip, so I just fell down. And luckily, my friend Drew totally caught my head.
Yeah. No, that was a good buddy there. Yeah, I used to ride BMX when I was a kid, so yeah, a lot of flats there. And even when I got into mountain biking, like I would BMX all week with my buddies, like street riding, doing stupid shit. And then on the weekends, I'd go ride with these guys that were like, you know, in their 40s. Yeah. So they would all wear, you know, that's back when there was toe clips. So I always used toe clips when I was mountain biking. So for me, it was just like, I never even thought about riding a mountain bike with flat pedals. And then whenever I got back into mountain biking, the dude at the shop was like, oh, we don't use toe clips anymore. We use these things. And I was like, all right, I'll do that. And honestly, the only reason I tried flats was just because everybody was like talking about it. And I felt like some of my skill set that I had from riding flats and BMX back in the day was gone because like I learned all these new ways to be lazy about things because of the clips, you know, like, or also full suspension, like, oh, compress the suspension, just jump straight up, the clips take it with you and you're good. You know, it's like, I don't need a bunny hop anymore, you know, and like, just so like, it was everybody talking about flats and then, you know, that same thing. And honestly, you know, now that I've been riding the flats for it's been 1.5 years, maybe 2 years now. I've been curious to go do a video and put my SPDs. I still use SPDs like on the road bike or the gravel bike. Yeah. So, I mean, the muscle memory is there as far as like getting on and off, but I don't know, man. I would say this right now. The thing that I like the most about flats, that's probably the thing that would keep me from trying or like going back to SPDs, is just how easy it is to get started when you're in like the middle of some chunky section. Yeah. You know, it's like so many times on the clips, it's like you'd get your foot in halfway or you were standing in mud so it wouldn't get back in and you're like riding in the middle of your heel and it's like no grip on the pedal and you're like, oh fuck, I'm going over these like big rocks. You know, it's just like, it's a shit show. You know?
Yeah, totally.
If you like that, make sure you check out the full episode. And hey, do me a favor, before you take off, hit the like and subscribe.